Hi, Ellington families. David Pearson, principal of the middle school here. Hey, before we start this podcast, which is a topic about technology, I want to invite you to a separate live event. At the open house, I told you that I was going to start a coffee conversation and community series, which was a companion to this podcast series. What do I want to happen there is that I'm hoping that you'll come have coffee with me and share your ideas based on what you're going to hear about in this podcast. So that's going to be on October 30th at 7 a.m. Yes, I said 7 a.m. Before you go to work, consider stopping at the brand new Dunkin' Donuts off the traffic circle. I'll have coffee available and we'll be together for about 45 minutes. I hope you'll stop in and share your ideas on the topic of technology in our schools. I hope to see you there. Hi everyone, welcome to the Principal Pearson podcast series. Today's topic is digital classrooms, implications for learning. So I am really truly fortunate to have two guests with me today, Danielle Valit, and I paused on that because she just got married, so it's taking me time. But Danielle is an instructional technology specialist and also a social studies teacher here. And as I said, just got recently married and went to Alaska, I think, right?
Yes.
Awesome. And also athletic director.
Yes.
So Danielle wears many hats here at Ellington Middle School. Mike Nash. Mike is also instructional technology specialist, former social studies teacher, this year's lead teacher, and fine graduate of Ellington Middle School.
Yeah, proud graduate of Ellington Middle School and High School, class of 2001. So,
well, welcome. Thank you both for taking the time to be with us. So here at Ellington Middle School, we truly feel fortunate that every student has access to either a tablet like a Chromebook or bring their own device like a laptop or something like that. So Mike, my first question is for you. For our parents in our community, can you describe how classrooms look differently now with those devices versus way back when you were a student?
Very long time ago, so back in the late 90s when the school was half its size before the renovations. But yeah, so back when I was in school, and even when I started teaching, that was about 9 years ago, you had classrooms where the desks were in rows. They were designed to face the teacher. There was a chalkboard or a whiteboard or a smartboard, which all kind of did the same thing, which was kind of to let the teacher present information for students and students to kind of sit with their textbook and write down facts and write down notes and kind of try to take everything the teacher was saying in and then sort of demonstrate that they learned it later on. So today it's very different. Our classrooms are much more student-centered. So you won't see desks in rows, and sometimes you won't even see desks at all. You'll see tables, you'll see sofas, armchairs, kind of comfortable seating for students. And you'll see students working together with the teacher and with each other and sometimes individually to kind of solve problems and investigate the reasons why different things are happening. And it's much more conceptual based and kind of problem-solving, inquiry-based, which is exciting.
So those devices then allow them to, I guess, go outside the four walls to something outside those four walls, yeah?
It's not just one person's perspective, like the textbook publisher, here's all the stuff. It's, here's an issue, here's a problem, here's a topic or, a question, and you have to kind of pull in multiple people's perspectives and kind of investigate that to figure out all sorts of possible scenarios. So it's not like there's a right or wrong answer anymore, which is kind of the way the world's always worked. So I think it's more beneficial for students to learn that way versus to learning, A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, sounds like they're a lot more active learners rather than passive.
Yep.
Danielle, you're in the classroom right now, so you hear Mike talk about this. So can you give us, give us an example?
So right now in the 8th grade classroom, our students are learning about Veterans Day, and it's something we've done every year that I've been here. And when I think back just 5 years ago, when the students were researching Veterans Day and understanding about that topic, we provided them with all the sources. We gave them the question they needed to answer, and we said, here's some articles, here's a PowerPoint presentation, and gave them the sources. And this year, and over the past couple of years, we've transitioned to where we provide the students with a question and they can build off of that and go off and research on their own and find their own answers for it. And the greatest part about it is once they've gotten their answers and they've found all their research, is now they're able to create something to share with a wider audience. So again, going outside of those four walls around our classroom, they can create something that's in the digital world that people maybe on the other side of the world can see if they're able to share.
So when I was a student, and that was before you were here, way
Yes.
back when, we would basically write something and we would submit something in writing. That's almost always how we communicated, either that or we took a test. That was mainly the two ways people sort of sampled me as a student what I was thinking. So in this veterans example, is that the way it happens? Is that how the final product looks?
So there's multiple options for the students. There's still the option to write something and share it, but there's also the option to come here into our digital lab and have the students record a podcast of what they've learned about Veterans Day. Maybe even make a song to honor our veterans using the equipment in here. So there's a lot more options for them to explore their passions and maybe try a new piece of technology that they'll be able to remember for the rest of their life and use those skills.
Huh. That sounds pretty cool. Michael, I think that most of us can agree that to be prepared for the workplace for today and tomorrow, our students need to be digitally really competent. With that said, there are some red flags working in this digital world. With so many devices and the internet that we have and the Wi-Fi and access all the time to the internet, parents often ask me this question: how do you keep my child safe at your school, knowing that there's all this access now, and that's just not within the walls, but it's beyond the walls and the world beyond? So let me ask this question: how would you answer that very valid question our parents are asking about keeping kids safe?
Yeah, extremely valid question, because it is really important.
Yeah.
And we kind of take a two-pronged approach here in Ellington. The first and the most important is digital citizenship teaching for students, like teaching kids explicitly how to use the internet safely, which is lessons like, how do you trust a source? Like, how do you find trustworthy information? How do you detect bias in information? How do you communicate with people online in an appropriate way? So we have those kinds of lessons in place, and we do that kind of teaching. On the other end, we also know that kids are still kids, and they're still learning, and they're going to make mistakes. So we have some protections in place to prevent the big mistakes which kids could potentially make. So we have a content filter which does not allow access to explicit sites. So things that are violent, things that are just not appropriate for kids in school, they can't access those sites. We also have a program called Hapara, which allows teachers to kind of check in on what kids are doing on their computer to make sure they're staying on task. And finally, our IT department does a screening of search terms and everything that's put into the computer, so that they can see if a student is trying to search something that may be inappropriate. It kind of triggers a red flag, so that they can investigate further. They can let us know in the office, myself or you, like who's investigating something, what are they looking up, so that we can work with that student to kind of teach them, that's not okay to do.
What I love about it though is the idea that we have a preventative way of teaching and understanding the best way to interact with the internet, but we also have active adults in the building who are monitoring the activity and making sure that kids are safe.
Yep, and we're constantly updating those procedures to move along with the times.
Yeah, awesome. Danielle, the number one question parents ask me is, should I buy my child a Chromebook? What advice would you give them on that?
Well, I think the great thing is that here in the school we have enough Chromebooks for all the students to have access if they weren't to have their own. But for that ease of use and that transition from school to home every day, it would be a great option if it was available to have that Chromebook there for them, because they'll be able to access all of their school work. And also that big picture of the students will have this from middle school all the way up through high school could also be something very helpful for them.
Yeah, it is pretty exciting. I mean, this is the first year that from grades 1 through 12, there are Chromebooks district-wide. So I agree with you that ultimately there is an ease of use if you have your own device. And they'll probably be able to use that. They will be able to use that device at high school?
Yes, they'll be able to continue.
So even if they buy it now, there's multiple years of use out of that.
Right.
Awesome. Great. All right. Let's wrap it up. All right. So here's my one question for both of you. I want to open it up a little bit. What's the one piece of advice you would offer our parents who are raising children in this exciting yet fast-paced digital age?
So I'm a parent. I have two children. My daughter Grace is 7 and my son Will is 4. So I think one of the most important things to do, and I try to do this with my own kids, is to model how you can use technology for learning, because kids have tons of questions. You know they have tons of questions. They ask all sorts of crazy stuff all the time, and their instinct is to ask an adult for an answer. But teaching kids that like you can find out your own answers by using technology to kind of, so even if it's I let my kids use Siri to ask questions so that they can figure out the answers to things they're curious about. It's just something you can do to model how you learn online, so that kids kind of understand that technology is not just for entertainment, it's also for learning.
Awesome. Daniel, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think that technology is a great thing to have both at home and in school, but I also think that it's important to have that time away from technology. And one thing we've adopted here at the middle school this year is TFT, or technology free time. And it's just that time to close your Chromebook and put it aside and have more face-to-face conversations and be present in what's going on and listening to your peers. And it's something that even at home we can model with at dinner time, let's put our phones away and close our computer screens, just to be present and be there with everyone in the family or in the classroom. Yeah,
that reminds me, there's a commercial out right now where the family's having dinner and they're doing that, and mom eventually shuts the internet off, right? But that is, I think the distractibility of that is incredible. I think we all struggle with that as adults and kids, and trying to model that the best we can, is something important.
You could even institute your own tech-free time. Like
you could.
Between 5:30 and 8:30 p.m. It's just devices are off, TV's off, and we're going to have tech-free time every day during those hours.
Because it is such a great resource. We've heard how in our classrooms it's changed how learning happens in our classroom, even physically, and so much student-centered. And we've heard examples about how kids now learning is not just for their teacher, but now they can create for authentic audiences through videocast and podcast. And we've heard how we've kept our kids safe through both a proactive and also active monitoring. And then finally, we've talked a little bit about, should I buy a Chromebook, and the advantages of buying a Chromebook. I want to thank you both for being part of our conversation today and all the work you do here at our school. Thank you for listening to this podcast on digital classrooms, implications for learning.